Drunk History Metal Gear. I'm excited about this one. I have not yet played the new one on the PS4, even though we have PS4s now. I'm looking forward to playing it. That's a weird game, and I don't know much about it yet, and I probably should learn more about that as soon as we get closer to actually playing the full-fledged title. But the way they've done it with the prologue, that's like in a couple hours, you can replay over and over again before the main game. Very bizarre kind of release strategy for that one, but still, it does look visually impressive.
So is Ground Zeroes, is that the next one, or is that...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Ground Zeroes, and then the Phantom Pain is the full title. Ground Zeroes is like the prologue to the Phantom Pain.
Cool.
So, we'll get there. Before we start, Hideo Kojima says that the story is so confusing he can't keep up with it anymore. They really shoehorned a lot of different details in here. That's very messed up. He says even the next games, the Phantom Pain and Ground Zeroes, he's introducing even more plot holes just to kind of create a fun story. So he's very open to say that he's just trying to create fun games and then writing the story after the fact. So the stories are very loosely intertwined. I've gone through them all, and I'm connecting the dots and trying to make a coherent story, but this is not going to be very coherent, I'll just say that right now. So it's my best attempt.
Okay, so it's more about
story.
like the fun experience, not really about the story. It's like the Die Hard movies. It's really just about, we kind of want this to happen, and the story to get us here is more of a function of what we want to have happen.
Die Hard 2 through plus, yes. Die Hard 1 is exempt from that rule, but Die Hard 2 on, yes, completely agree with you.
Okay.
We'll get to that. So the drinking rules, I say drink whenever there's a twist.
Okay.
Whenever somebody's double-crossed, whenever there's a setup.
Man.
Yeah, you like that. You did tell me about the twist in the game.
Have they drink in Interstellar whenever they sing that or say that poem again? Oh, okay.
Have you heard that poem before? I don't think anybody's heard that. Listen to the poem over and over again.
Yeah. Rage against the tide of the line. As if there's someone making the counterpoint. As if someone just give up, Matthew McConaughey, just go home. It's like, no, I'm gonna rage against it.
To get started, there is a MacGuffin we have to address completely to start the game of the philosophers. So the entire game's kind of hinge on this kind of concept of these philosophers, and the philosophers refers to a think tank of wealthy and elite people from around the U.S., Russia, and China. They were considered the Wise Man's Committee before World War I. These guys kind of dictate who's going to be elected, wars, the future of different civilizations, the economy, and these guys play a huge role in every single game going forward.
Okay.
So that's out of the way. So, some timeline stuff. First of all, 1935. A lot of stuff happens in history here. Big Boss, a.k.a. John, a.k.a. Jack, a.k.a. Venom Snake, Punish Snake, Naked Snake, every euphemism you can think of, is born in 1935. About 20 years later, 15 years later, he meets his mentor, the Boss. These are terrible names for leaders, but the
Very
Boss,
lazy names, yeah.
Very
Big
lazy
Boss
writing.
The Boss, yeah.
Yeah, so, really, you're the boss too. I'm the boss. Anyways,
okay.
but they meet. They both have been radiated by the U.S. in different testing in Nevada, so they're both infertile. It's a random detail they throw into the games, and because of this sort of common. What's that?
Are you infertile? Oh yeah, me too.
In 1961, 10 years later, Kennedy apparently disobeys the philosophers. Oh, and I said and that's what gets him assassinated. So, just random detail. I had that wrong, but that's apparently why he was assassinated.
Did Robert Kennedy, was he also killed because of that, or was that just a separate thing? Or Martin
I think it's
Luther King?
that's maybe in Ground Zeroes. We'll find out.
Oh, okay.
There's more to come. Kojima can do whatever he wants to do, so apparently.
Just kill everybody, yeah.
Alright, so the first game takes place about 3 years later. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is the first one in the series. Did you actually play this game?
For like 10 minutes, I couldn't invest into it, and it takes a bit of an investment to get started. It's one of those steep learning curves at the start.
I think all of them are like that.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah, all of them are like that. I think there's so many good parts about this game. I really like the fight with that old guy.
The end.
I forgot the end. Yeah, I thought that fight was fantastic. And I know you could just age him out. You could just freeze or pause the game and he'll die eventually. But I thought actually hunting him in the forest was a lot of fun. I think there's a whole video series about like the best parts of Metal Gear games, like the best boss fights, or like the really cool moments of Metal Gear games, because there are a lot of just like lulls between those best parts.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to get through those moments, there are some great sequences in the Metal Gear games. And this one had a lot. So, gosh, here we go. Let's get through the dense background here. So, the Cuban Missile Crisis was apparently not really about what we thought it was. It was about actually the U.S. returning a Russian scientist who had defected to us, Sokolov. The U.S. decided to send Naked Snake in to get Sokolov back to retrieve him again because they thought this weapon he's designing is too dangerous. We need to control this. So they launched the Virtuous mission. So, along the way, Snake is he's helped by Major Zero, who's going by the name Major Tom for this mission.
Okay.
Paramedic, who's just obviously the medic, and the boss. Like you said, lazy names. And the boss is helping him out just via radio, telling him what's going on the entire time. And I'll point this out right now, Naked Snake and Major Zero, these two guys actually, I think the entire series really culminates in the battle between these two guys. Right now, they're buddies, but just keep that in your mind, because this comes back at the very end of the whole thing. So Snake finds out Sokolov, he finds Sokolov, he's going to escape with him, but he runs into Revolver Ocelot. The first time Ocelot shows up in the games, but on the way out, Snake with Sokolov, on the way out they run into the boss, who previously was just on the radio with Snake, telling him how to get through the jungle. But he runs into her personally, she's there in the jungle too. So the twist, and so this is where you drink. The twist is, she's defected, she's going rogue. So Volgan has launched this terrorist organization that is gonna kind of take over the world. Volgan tells the boss when she catches you to kill Snake, get rid of you, and she ends up, because she knows she ends up just breaking Snake's elbow and then throws him off a bridge, so he doesn't die. But he's able to watch what happens after this. So Volgan, on the way, as they're leaving with Sokolov, he decides just to have some fun. He fires a nuke back at the Russian facility, Sokolov's lab, and blows it up. And that's how the game starts. And Snake, who screwed up the whole thing, is actually sentenced to be executed. They're going to kill Snake when he comes back to the U.S. And then Major Zero, at the last minute, says, you know what, I got an idea for Snake. Let's not kill him just yet.
Okay.
So that's the first part of the game. Second part of the game, they send Snake back in.
Oh, makes sense.
Repeat the mission a second time. So go back in, find Sokolov again.
Let's try this again and see if we get a different result. Yeah.
Just a mulligan, let's just do over the whole thing. So they send him back in, get Sokolov out, fight the boss, who we now know is bad, fight Volgan, and then also figure out what the Shagohod project really is and secure it. That's what his mission really is. Snake goes back in again and immediately runs into the boss a second time, who beats the hell out of him, tears up his weapon, and then has her horse step on him before she leaves. Like, just screws him up again. Like, he just cannot fight this person. Eva shows up and is there to help Snake, but wildly she can't really confirm like the passphrase that Snake is looking for, so I'm not really sure if she's Eva or she's not. She does actually help him find Sokolov pretty quickly, and so they go to the Cobra base where everybody is, find Sokolov. Snake starts setting up bombs to blow up the whole place. Before he can do it, the boss shows up a third time, stops him again, and then brings Volgan in to kind of have that bad guy moment where he's going to explain the entire plan to the good guy and let you know what's going on in this whole game you've been playing. So here comes another twist. Eva, that's been helping you out, is really named Tatiana, is Volgan's lover in the game. But Volgan knew that Tatiana was double-crossing him. Volgan is so powerful because he has the Philosopher's Legacy, which is kind of the first time we hear about this thing. The Philosopher's Legacy, you know the Philosophers earlier, Philosopher's Legacy is really their trust fund that those guys left standing. And so it's like $100 billion that Volgan has access to. Volgan decides, instead of like capturing Snake, he decides just to fight Snake and loses that fight. Volgan's not dead. He gets in a Shagohod tank and comes after him. And then Snake and Volgan have a fight in the street. And Volgan, if you didn't know, has the power of electricity. He's like Raiden from Mortal Kombat. He can shoot electricity around. And so Snake beats the hell out of him, and then eventually Volgan gets struck by lightning as he's trying to... Yeah, it does. And what actually kills him is like his ammo belt on his chest blows up, and that's what kills him when the lightning hits him. So Snake goes off to a field, flower field of like white, to fight the boss, and she's there waiting for him for the next twist in the game series. And so it turns out the boss wasn't really defecting to Volgan's team, but they had sent her on a mission to get the Philosopher's Legacy from Volgan and the Shagohod tank. So even when you found her in the jungle, she was with Volgan, but she was like an undercover agent for the U.S. the entire time, and would have gotten stuff and left until Volgan shot that nuke after he saw you back and blew up the base. the nuke blowing up in the USSR was so public at that point. There's no way to hide what happened, and so the U.S. needed a scapegoat for the whole explosion and kind of this Cuban Missile Crisis that's going on. They needed to have somebody to blame, so she had to take the fall for the whole incident.
Oh, okay.
And so she was blamed for the rebellion. She was blamed for the nuclear explosion, and randomly too, she turns out she's Ocelot's mom.
What?
And her, yeah, she apparently had Ocelot, and this is even the weirder part. She apparently had Ocelot in an emergency C-section as she's storming the beaches of Normandy in World War II.
Okay, that's not very likely, but okay.
I think it's happened a few times to a few other people, but
Yeah.
anyways,
Wait,
historically
so
accurate.
many movies. Finally, it shows up in a game, and I was like,
So she ends up getting killed by Snake, who before she dies, she deems him effectively the boss, not Big or Naked Snake, but now Big Boss. And she's no longer the boss because she's dead. And the next morning, Eva leaves without saying anything. And so the twist here, Eva turns out she was a Chinese spy the entire time. If you remember the philosophers, the Russian, the Americans, and the Chinese.
Yeah.
So she's on the Chinese side. And so she was actually sent in to get the philosopher's legacy as well and do it from her side. And that's why she couldn't confirm that passphrase earlier when you first meet her. She doesn't know the passphrase. She's not really Eva. Turns out she took off with a fake microfilm that Big Boss gave, or the boss gave you as well. So she gets away with nothing. Really, but you do sleep with her and she takes off, and that's kind of the end of the story for Eva for now. You with me so far?
yeah. So that's kind of gets Metal Gear started on the private market or whatever. You spend the other games chasing down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, let's go there. All right, so going forward in time, so a few years later, about 2 years later, Big Boss goes off and rescues a guy named Frank Yeager. So a couple of portable games, a couple of the PSP games come out at this time. So next in the series is Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. Big Boss, now no longer Naked Snake, is escaping from he was a Fox agent, but he's now running away from some renegade Fox soldiers who want that philosopher's legacy. So he decides to form the Fox Hound group.
Okay.
Major Zero, the guy from the previous game, the paramedic, who's the medical guy from the previous game, Ocelot, who's now working with Big Boss, who's available as the highest bidder, Eva, who's not gone, after all, she comes back to help Boss, and Frank Yeager, who he rescued from the Civil War earlier. The twist here, if there is a twist, and I'll say there's a twist in this game, is that really the Foxhound group, Major Zero and Ocelot, have orchestrated this entire game. So they set up Big Boss to be captured by the Fox team. They made the Fox team go after Big Boss for his money because they knew when that happened, the CIA director in the U.S., who actually happens to have another half of the legacy, the Philosopher's legacy, the Philosopher's money, they knew that once that Big Boss was targeted, the CIA director would show up and come out of hiding and would try to help and intervene and get the money himself, because the CIA, and so they took the opportunity, Ocelot took the opportunity to go kill the CIA director and get his money. So moving forward in time, Big Boss is injured, goes into a coma. I actually don't know how he's injured. I probably should have learned that. He's injured, goes into a coma. Zero, worried about what Boss is going to do when he comes out of his coma, decides to steal his genes, and using Eva from Metal Gear 3 as a surrogate, he decides to grow 3 children with Boss's genes, Solid, Liquid, and Solid as Snake. And so, next in the series, Metal Gear 7 Solid Peace Walker, another PSP title. This one happens for Big Boss again. He decides to lose the Big Boss name, go with Naked Snake instead. He forms this group called Soldiers Without Borders, Militaris Sans Fronteras. They're just, kind of renegade type people. They're recruited by a Costa Rican group to help them fight off a military presence in their country. It turns out the military presence is actually CIA in their country. Snake learns about the Peace Walker project while he's there in Costa Rica. Okay. This is actually a nuke-ready Metal Gear. It's called the Peace Walker. And the AI of the Metal Gear is actually built on the mentality of the boss.
Huh.
And the KGB are actually the ones that hired Snake's team. They're the Costa Rican people that hired Snake's team to fight off the CIA. And so Snake realizes if he's working with the KGB to fight the CIA, he's going to be viewed as an enemy of America for doing this. Mm-hmm. And so he has to kind of stop this war before it starts. And so Snake has to fight off the Peace Walker robot personally while he's on the phone with the U.S. saying, hey, this is what's happening. It's not actually, Russia firing if this does happen. But they don't believe him. They're like, who is this guy? And so Snake has to go, it's me, it's the Big Boss. and he has to go back to his Big Boss title again, and the U.S. like, oh, it's Big Boss, we know who you are, we believe you. And then I guess Peace Walker in this process kind of learns who it is as well, and starts to believe him, and Peace Walker, the boss portion of Peace Walker, kind of wakes up and realizes what's going on, and so she doesn't want to fight her student, and so she just commits suicide, and the Peace Walker robot drowns itself in the ocean nearby. Wow.
Okay. That's not where I was going to go at all.
So, moving forward. So, this is where Metal Gear 5 is going to take place. It was right after this moment in time, when Big Boss, now with his army of people, and before kind of Metal Gear conventionally takes off, before we meet Solid Snake, Metal Gear 5 is going to take place at this moment in time. So, Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain, I don't have a picture of that, but the Phantom Pain will occupy this time and space.
Man, it is confusing as crap. Okay, but
well, it's Big Boss is your protagonist. He's gonna be the enemy later in the story, but right now he's got an army of people. They're forming a base off the grid. Kind of the U.S. is trying to get the money from him. The Russians want to get the money from him. Everybody wants to get the power he's got. He's just trying to disappear. And then Zero, who's on his team, is actually slowly kind of injecting himself into kind of the U.S. Political structure. And so there's a lot of corruption happening behind the scenes. He's just trying to not allow things to kind of teeter over the edge, is what he's trying to do. I'm not sure where the story is going to go, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, sounds good.
Alright, so moving ahead. Solid Snake kills Raiden's parents and raises him as a child soldier. So I guess Solid Snake's kind of like a Voldemort to Raiden's Harry Potter. But he actually, starts tutoring the guy after he kills his parents.
Okay.
Raiden's a big guy later on, as of course you know. And then in 1990, Solid Snake goes off to fight in the Gulf War. Liquid Snake, his brother, who doesn't know yet, goes off to fight for the British soldiers. He's actually in the same war, but he's actually captured by Iraq for 4 years and released in like 94. So, the first game I've ever played in this series, Metal Gear, finally comes at this point, 1995. So, in this story, Big Boss is relied upon by the U.S. He's still, U.S. hero after the stuff he's done in Russia, rescuing Shagohod and all the other stuff. They are, Big Boss is asked to send in a crew to investigate a base in South Africa called Outer Heaven, where they're building some weapon. And if you play the other ones, of course, you know at this point that Big Boss is the running Outer Heaven. Right. But again, the NES game came first, and so at this time we did not know this. So this is a twist we didn't know was coming. Big Boss sends in his rookie agent, Solid Snake, to go in to find Grey Fox and figure out what's going on in this South African base, with Big Boss on the radio to help the entire ways. And so as Snake gets closer and closer to finding Madner and the Metal Gear itself, Big Boss's reports on the radio and his advice on the radio starts to get a little more confusing, and he actually starts trying to slow down Snake and giving him bad advice and bad directions, just to try to prevent him from getting there. Regardless, Snake still finds the Metal Gear and sets it to blow up and tries to leave the base. Do you remember this game very well?
Not very well. I know that's what I thought I would. Yeah, it's been a while since I played it, but it holds up, right?
No, I don't think so at this point. But I remember fighting these guys. I remember playing this like a lot. I'm surprised you don't. So on his way out, Snake runs into Outer Heaven's real boss, Outer Heaves, so probably Outer Heaven's real boss, which is of course the Big Boss, which we know. The twist, if you will. Snake was a decoy meant to delay the American. And so Big Boss sent Snake in, hoping he would take a long time to get to the Metal Gear, because they're actually building the Metal Gear. Big Boss is trying to build the Metal Gear at this moment, and so he hoped Snake would, even he knew the Americans were onto him, but he hoped to kind of control the flow of information by being overseeing Snake's mission the entire time. So he confronts Snake, tells him what's going on, and he decides to fight Snake. He loses the fight. And Snake takes off and escapes before the whole base explodes. And so, for us who've played the games and know what happens in the story, turns out Big Boss really wasn't the big bad guy we think he is in this game. He was actually trying to build the Metal Gear to stop Zero. And Major Zero earlier from the previous game, after the Portable Ops, has the Metal Gear from the Peace Walker team. He's trying to build another Metal Gear to fight Major Zero's Metal Gear. Alright, so moving ahead, Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake. I remember this one. had the 2D mode I really liked.
Oh yeah.
So, first, apparently the NES remake of this game, the only one I ever played, yeah, Kojima hated this game. He never knew about it before it was developed. He said it was a piece of crap.
Yeah, I think it really built on all the great things about the first one. But you just had a lot more levels, a lot more areas you could go to, and I think the boss was better at the end.
Well, you mean the puzzle with the maze of the remote control rocket?
Oh, was that this? I thought it was the other game.
No, that's this one.
Oh, well, that was okay. That was a little bit a pain in the ass.
That was horrible. That was a horrible finale. But the rest of the game was great. So, history here: the Cold War is over. The world is moving to a fusion energy economy as oil is becoming in short supply. Roy Campbell, who you may remember from the earlier Portable Ops game, is now leading the Foxhound group. And so Snake is now a member of Foxhound. He's sent to Zanzibar to bring back an oil engineer named Dr. Marv, who was kidnapped by that group. Snake has to fight Gray Fox again, Frank Yeager, who in the previous game was the agent that Snake was trying to rescue, but really was working for Big Boss. Snake has to fight Gray Fox here. Gray Fox is now driving one of the Metal Gear Ds. So he has to fight him here, and then he kills him, presumably in a minefield, blows Gray Fox up. And of course, we know Gray Fox does not die. He'll show up later on as that invisible ninja in the Metal Gear Solid games. But this is where he fights him as a human, and then he shows up a few years later. So Big Boss is still alive. He's in this new base with this. He's the one who's controlling, so who's running his whole thing. He confronts Snake a second time, and lets Snake know actually he's his dad. You know, he tells him that my genes were used to grow you in a lab. And Snake learns about this information and promptly just torches his dad with a can of aerosol and a lighter. So, moving forward in time.
Okay.
And then Dr. Naomi Hunter is an important character. She perfects the Fox Dye, which is literally named what it does. Virus, which is it's injected into people, and it's like a targeted virus. And so Fox Dye can be used to kill certain people. If they interact with somebody who has Fox Dye and they're targeted to die, they will die. So 2005, Metal Gear Solid. So the original PlayStation game that kind of relaunched the series was a big title at the time, 1999 when it came out. Liquid Snake has taken over the Foxhound team, and they go on a training exercise to the Shadow Moses Island. Roy Campbell, again, calls Snake back from retirement because while Liquid Snake is there, Liquid Snake actually calls the U.S. and says, you know what, we're actually going to rebel. We're going to blow up the world unless you give us some money. And so they've gone rogue, and so Snake has been called out of retirement to hunt down this group in Shadow Moses. And Snake doesn't know this, but he's actually injected with the Fox Dye serum before he goes into Shadow Moses to confront Liquid Snake. Twist on this one. And this means when Snake goes in to rescue people that have been kidnapped by Liquid Snake, including DARPA Chief Donald Anderson and this other tech guy, these guys actually, when he meets them, they actually die because Fox Dye has been designed to kill them because the U.S. is trying to cover up this whole incident. At the end of the game, Liquid jumps inside Rex and fights Snake from inside of it. Before Snake's killed, Gray Fox, the cyborg, actually shows up and decides to save Snake and gets killed in the process.
Oh wow!
Liquid and Snake fight each other. Liquid loses a fight.
Yeah.
But despite that, he actually dies because of the Fox Dye serum, and Snake has been targeted to kill Liquid. And so the fact that they're fighting in close quarters means that Liquid is actually going to die anyways because he's been infected with Fox Dye. And so at the end of the game, Ocelot takes Liquid's severed hand and runs away with the Rex blueprints to go sell on the black market some more selling of Metal Gear blueprints.
Okay. Very opportunistic. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So Ocelot does. He keeps doing this kind of thing. Ocelot weirdly starts to be taken over by Liquid's hand. It's like that Body Parts movie from the 1990s.
He still has it?
Yeah, he attaches it to where his severed hand is.
Oh, okay. He replaces his hand with the other hand. Okay, got it.
With Ocelot's hand. And so he actually starts to, in the next game, starts to talk and act like him. It turns out later on this is actually not like a possession that's happening. It's actually a combination of hypnotherapy and nanoengineering that's designed to trick the Patriots somehow. But at the time when you play the next game, it looks like he's actually being taken over by Liquid's spirit just by having that hand attached to him.
Interesting.
It's a weird thing that happens. And speaking of weird thing that happens, Metal Gear Solid 2 is perhaps one of the weirdest in the series. I played through this one. God, it had the most ridiculous cutscenes.
Yeah, they're really horrible.
Not as horrible as 4 later, but it's still really bad, and it's just a silly game. And so Snake and Otacon team up to find this Metal Gear. It's on an oil tanker. It's in the New York harbor, secretly being transported out of the city. Snake boards the boat. But it's almost immediately hijacked by this mercenary group led by Sergei Golgovich, who actually is working for Ocelot, who, like I said, has been presumably possessed by Liquid, but it's always random people pulling strings. But they get there, but the thing goes south. The ship gets blown up.
Oh no!
Ocelot manages to escape within the ray. Metal Gear runs away with it, and the ship sinks. It's an oil tanker. Oil spills in New York Harbor. Snake's kind of held accountable for the entire thing going south. It just doesn't look good. It's a horrible kind of thing that happens. And it happens in the first hour of the game to play Metal Gear 2. After that incident, and probably like a 45-minute cutscene after that, you pick up 2 years later, and it's a weird transition. You're playing as Snake, chasing Solid as Snake on an oil rig. Solid as Snake has apparently captured the U.S. president, and is issuing all kinds of demands to the U.S. So, a couple of twists coming up. Turns out, when you're playing this sequence, you're not playing as Snake after all. You're playing as Raiden, who actually runs around for way too long, completely naked in the sequence. Raiden is kind of not really portrayed very well. Gets just reprimanded by his girlfriend throughout this game. It's just a horrible character. And Snake's on the rig as well. You see Snake every now and then, but you're playing as Raiden. And you catch up, you fight a lot of guys. But it turns out the whole thing's just a simulation. And so when you get to the end of the game, you kind of pull back the veil. It's really a simulation. Raiden's being led into a computer simulation led by Zero. And his AI he's entrusted all the money to. And they're really trying to convert Raiden into becoming the next legendary soldier for really the Patriots army. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a simulation exercise. It doesn't really matter. Raiden wakes up from this whole thing. He still has the opportunity to kill Solid as Snake, which he does in New York. And then Ocelot leaves again with his Metal Gear Ray from earlier in the game. So what happens after this? Private military companies, PMCs, try to take over the world, and Liquid Ocelot and all his Metal Gear infamy kind of starts running these PMCs. So, catching up in the series, 2010, Metal Gear Solid Rising, the one that no one played. It's a combat simulator kind of thing. Eva from, Snake Eater, way back when, shows back up again. And she's 40 years later, she's known as Big Mama this time, and she's contacting Raiden for help. She really wants to get the body of Big Boss that, if you remember, Major Zero is actually held on ice for a while now, since Metal Gear 2 for the NES. Big Major just kept the comatose body of Big Boss in his custody. Okay. So she's using Raiden to get the body back.
Makes sense.
In the process, Raiden gets his head and spine ripped off, which is a problem. But fortunately, you're able to fuse it to a cyborg body. And so that's how you become like the super soldier in the game. Raiden does find the comatose body of Big Boss, and then Raiden goes off the grid.
Good deal for Raiden, kind of redeeming his character.
I think they have to. This is like the ultra extreme way to do that after the previous game. They had to make him a cyborg soldier with no girlfriend whatsoever. Yeah, they go full tilt, make this guy crazy bad. Alright, so Metal Gear 4 is the next one in the series, and you never played this one at all. Like, I gave it to you.
No. I played the first full level. I mean, I got on the plane, I escaped from the desert area, and I haven't played the second one yet. The second level yet. Yeah.
There's 5 worlds, man. There's 5 chapters in that game. You're through chapter 1.
Yeah, so it's a fifth of the game. That's not bad. It's better than never playing it.
Alright, so the backstory here is the oil stuff's now old news. It's now a war economy, so the PMCs are driving really the economy of the world. They're all under Ocelot. Snake is prematurely aging randomly. It's actually due to the fox dye exposure he has in his body. It's making him age faster than normal, so he looks a lot older than he should at his age. But Ocelot's kind of taken over the world financially. So Roy Campbell decides it's time to kill Ocelot, he gets Snake out of retirement and says, you know what, you should go kill this guy. So Snake and Raiden decide to go after Ocelot and Shadow Moses. So you go back to the same base from PlayStation 1. And in the base is the Metal Gear Rex that you and Liquid fought on in Metal Gear PlayStation 1. Snake and Raiden find that, and they try to escape Shadow Moses with it. But along the way, Ocelot stops them with the Ray, the Metal Gear Ray he had since the Metal Gear PlayStation, the second PlayStation game, Metal Gear Solid, the terrible one too. He's had that other Metal Gear Ray that he stole from the oil tanker. Ocelot loses the fight, but he escapes in his gunship, which he's called the Outer Heaven, which is what Big Boss called his group in South Africa. But along the way, he also takes Rex's railgun, the Metal Gear railgun, which can be used to launch nukes around the world. So Ocelot's now escaped on his base with his army with a nuclear shooting missile launcher. And so it's not a good situation. So what happens next is Snake actually has to go on board the Outer Heaven boat, and Snake and Liquid finally have their last huge fight on top of the ship. And they punch it out, goes on for a long freaking time. Before he gets here, Snake gets radiated. It's really kind of cool, dramatic sequence. He gets radiated again, just beat the hell out of Snake. And so you think Snake's not going to make it. He has his last fight with Liquid Ocelot, beats him up. It's a hard fight in the game. It took a long time to get through that part. He beats him and wins the fight, kills Liquid. Finally kills Liquid Ocelot after all these mini games. So they conclude their multi-game struggle at the top of the ship. In the aftermath, Raiden gets his body back. I don't know how that works. I don't know if he's a wizard or how that works, but he gets his body back and he's fully human again, and he gets his wife back. Everything's great. Meryl goes back to her dad. Roy, who's still alive, is fantastic. And Snake goes off to Big Boss's grave, his dad's grave. And when he gets there, he runs into his dad. Big Boss is there. He's not dead. You can see him in the bottom right. So the Big Boss, who he's fought, in the previous 2 NES games, is still around. He's actually not been killed. He's not in a comatose situation. He's not dead. So what happened was, after you killed Liquid Ocelot on top of the ship, all the nanomachines that Liquid Ocelot apparently controlled die. And the nanomachines were actually what was keeping Big Boss in this coma-like state. And so when the nanomachines die, Big Boss immediately wakes up and then kills Major Zero. And so Major Zero has been keeping Big Boss kind of captive all these years, sort of via nanomachines. Big Boss finally has a chance to kill him, which he does in the cemetery right in front of you. He rolls him in. You see Major Zero in the bottom left there in the wheelchair. Big Boss rolls him in. He kills him right in front of you. But these two guys have been fighting since the first game, and trying to struggle for the Philosopher's Legacy and power of the U.S. and all this other stuff. Big Boss finally kills him in the cemetery. But it doesn't matter, because the Fox Die and Snake has actually been targeted to kill Big Boss as well. And so the fact that Big Boss is saying hello to his son after all these years in the cemetery, the fact that they meet in person is enough for the Fox Die and Snake's body to kill Big Boss at last too. So Big Boss dies, Major Zero dies, everybody dies, and then Snake is still alive, and he retires with Otacon, and they kind of hang out together.
Wow.
And that's the end of the series.
That's amazing. That's so much stuff. Oh my god.
I excluded so much. I avoided all the bosses. I excluded really details in the AI constructs, which were huge parts of the later games. I didn't really go into Raiden's backstory a whole lot. There's so much I didn't address because it's just not essential.
Oh my god.